Hi students, today we want to talk about Cinderella. Who knows Cinderella? Most of you know, right? Do you remember something about her? Okay, we know that she had a stepmother, but she weren't kind. No, she was mean to her. Okay, she forced her to do all the chores at the house. She tried her like a slave. Yes, that's true. So let's see what we learn about this story about Cinderella. The objectives for today is you will know that fairy tales have characters, scenes, and events. You will understand the story elements of a fairy tale, and you will be able to draw and write a sentence telling one element of a fairy tale where we read. So remember, we are seeing the same in Spanish. We are talking about the characters, the setting, and the events. And that's the same we want to do here. Fairy tales. Do you know what a fairy tale is? Fairy tales are stories for kids. They are magic. They have enchantment. They are the fiction. The characters sometimes are people, sometimes are animals. And they start once upon a time. They usually have royal characters like princes, queens, kings. They have good and bad characters or evil characters. And they have a setting like changement setting, like something that is not possible to be in the real life. So they are magic, changement, story beginning, like once upon a time, royal, prince and the princess, good, evil, they have a title, and they have a setting. So let's see what we learn about all this. We want to talk about the word embrace, splendor, warning, and word. You know what embrace is? Yeah, when you give thanks for what you have. So remember, embrace is when you hold something close to you, something special to you. Affection. Splendor is like luxury, like something that you have too much, you live with too much. Riqueza. Warning. Warning is when it's telling you stop. Something is gonna happen if you don't listen. Worthy. Worthy is when you have like you do something and then you get something in rewards. Una recompensa. Okay? Ready? Let's listen to this.
Once there was a girl who was called Cinderella. Cinderella lived with her stepmother and two stepsisters. Her stepmother was mean to Cinderella and forced her to do the hardest and dirtiest work in the house. The poor girl had to scour the dishes or clean them by rubbing very hard, scrub the floors, and wash the clothes all by herself. When her work was finally done, Cinderella would sit, tired and alone, by the fireplace among the ashes and cinders. That was why they called her Cinderella. Cinderella's stepsisters lived in splendor, or had the best of everything. They had soft beds, thick carpets, and silver-edged mirrors. Poor Cinderella had to sleep on the floor next to the fire. One day, the king's son, the prince, announced that he was going to hold a royal ball at the royal palace. It would be a grand evening of dancing, and all the young ladies in the kingdom were invited. When they heard the announcement, Cinderella's stepsisters shrieked with excitement. For days they primped in front of their mirrors and talked of nothing but the ball. They shouted orders at Cinderella and ran her ragged while they got ready for the ball. Cinderella, shouted the older stepsister, shine my shoes. Cinderella, called the younger, iron out this wrinkle in my dress. Cinderella helped her stepsisters get ready without complaining. Silently, however, she was longing to go to the ball. She imagined herself dancing in the arms of the prince. How wonderful it would be! And yet she knew her stepmother would never allow her to go. At last the time came. The stepsisters and their mother left for the palace. Cinderella watched them drive away. When she lost sight of them, she began to cry. She felt so miserable and alone. But Cinderella was not alone after all. She heard a gentle voice ask, "What's the matter, dear?" She looked up and saw a woman with a kind face. "I wish, I wish I could," began Cinderella, but she could not finish for all her tears and sobbing. "You wish to go to the ball, is that it?" said the kind woman. "Why, yes," said Cinderella with surprise. "Then it shall be so. Cinderella, you are a kind girl, worthy of going to the ball," said the woman. "Cinderella deserves to go to the ball because she is kind and good." For you see, the woman was Cinderella's fairy godmother. "Now run into the garden," she said to Cinderella, "and bring me a pumpkin." Cinderella went to the garden, puzzled. She picked a large pumpkin and set it on the ground before the kind woman. The fairy godmother tapped it with her magic wand, and it turned into a dazzling coach lined with satin. "Now, dear," said the fairy godmother, "bring me the mouse trap from the house." Cinderella brought the trap, which had 6 live mice in it. The fairy godmother released the mice and waved her wand over them, turning them into a fine set of 6 gray horses. Then, with a touch of her wand, she turned a big rat into a fat, jolly coachman with long, fancy whiskers. "Well," said the fairy godmother with a smile, "what do you think? Are you pleased? Are you ready to go to the ball?" "Oh, yes," cried Cinderella, "but must I go in these dirty rags?" Her godmother laughed. Then, with a touch of her wand, she changed Cinderella's tattered clothes into a glittering gown of gold, and on her feet appeared a pair of glass slippers, the prettiest in the world. Cinderella stepped into the coach, but before she left, her fairy godmother gave her a stern warning. "Do not stay at the ball after midnight, not even a moment. When the clock strikes 12, the coach will once again be a pumpkin, the horses mice, the coachman a rat, and your gown the same clothes you had on." A stern warning is a serious set of directions that you should follow. Cinderella promised that she would leave before midnight. Then, calling out her thanks, away she rode in the coach, feeling happier than she had ever felt before. When Cinderella arrived at the ball, everyone admired her beauty. The prince asked Cinderella to dance with him. They danced together once, then twice, then again and again. Cinderella's face shone with happiness. Everyone at the ball looked on in admiration. Everyone, that is, but the 2 stepsisters. They glared jealously at the lovely lady, though they had no idea that they were glaring at Cinderella, because they didn't recognize her in her beautiful gown. For Cinderella, the music, the dancing, the warm gaze of the prince all seemed a wonderful dream. How quickly time slips away when the heart is happy. As Cinderella began to dance again with the prince, she heard the palace clock begin to toll. "Oh my," she gasped. "What time is it?" "Midnight," said the prince. "Midnight?" Cinderella's cheeks grew pale. She turned, and fast as a deer, ran out of the ballroom. She sprinted down a long hallway, then down a staircase. At the foot of the stairs, she stumbled. One of her slippers fell off, but Cinderella could not stop. As she ran breathlessly out of the castle into the darkness, she heard the clock strike midnight, and felt her smooth gown turn into the rough cloth of her everyday clothes. Her dazzling coach had turned back into a pumpkin, so she ran home alone. When she got there, she realized that she was still wearing one glass slipper. When Cinderella had run away, the prince had raced after her. Although he did not catch her, he did find, part way down the staircase, the glass slipper that had fallen off her foot. And that is why, the very next morning, the sound of trumpets woke the kingdom. The prince announced that he would marry the woman whose foot fit the glass slipper. He sent his men out on a mission. They were to try the slipper on the foot of every maiden in the land. From house to house they went, trying the slipper on foot after foot. On one foot the slipper was too long, on another too short, and so it went until they came to the house of Cinderella and her stepsisters. Cinderella's stepsisters tried to fit their feet into the slipper. They squeezed, pinched, and pushed, but the slipper would not fit. Then, from the shadows, Cinderella stepped forth and said, "Let me see if it will fit me." "You?" the stepsisters cried. "That's ridiculous. Every young woman in the kingdom is supposed to try on the slipper." "That includes me," stated Cinderella. The prince's men agreed, as the prince had given strict instructions that every maiden in the kingdom was to try on the slipper. One of the men placed the slipper on Cinderella's foot, and it fit perfectly. The stepsisters' mouths dropped open in astonishment. They were even more shocked when, from her pocket, Cinderella drew forth the other glass slipper. Only then did the stepsisters understand. The beautiful lady they had seen at the ball was Cinderella. They threw themselves at her feet and begged for forgiveness. Cinderella was so kind-hearted that she forgave them and embraced or hugged them. Cinderella married the prince. Her stepmother and stepsisters were invited to live in the palace with her, and she and the prince lived happily ever after.
Okay. Do you remember what the word worthy means? When the godmother said, "Then it shall be so, Cinderella, you are a kind girl, worthy of going to the ball." What that means? That she deserves to go to the ball. So she had the a recompense just because she was kind and she was a good girl. Okay, for today activity, what you wanna do, you're gonna draw a picture of one of the elements of the history in Cinderella. You can draw the characters, the setting, or even you can draw the problem of the history. And you wanna write one sentence telling me what the picture is about. Remember, you have to start with a capital letter. You need to have a space between your words. You need to use a period at the end of the sentence. So try to write as much sounds as you hear in the word. For example, I have right here, don't forget to put your name and date. The fairy tale Cinderella has what? So you can complete a sentence or you can do your own sentence. Remember, you have to do one element in the history. Draw an element. You can draw Cinderella, you can draw the stepmother, you can draw the sisters, you can draw the castle, and tell me why it is important to the history. Don't forget to turn your work. Once you finish that, you're gonna go to this activity about rhyming words. We've been practice rhyming words, so let's check this video.
Let's talk about Grammarly. Anytime you type or text, Grammarly provides quality.
Get Carson! Give me the channel! Let's play the rhyming words game. Play with me, my friends. Words that rhyme begin with different sounds, but have the same sound at the end. I need 3 words that rhyme. I have 2 already on my mind. When I say a third word that doesn't rhyme, you sit down. When I say a third word that does rhyme, stand up. I'm thinking of these 2 words that rhyme. Bug, hug.
What's the other word?
Bug, hug, pig.
Do they rhyme?
Bug, hug, fox.
Do they rhyme?
Now I'm
Yes.
thinking of these two words that rhyme. Cat, hat.
What's another word that rhymes? I
Cat,
hear mat.
hat, boy.
I hear rat.
Cat, hat, tree. Cat, hat, sat.
Do they rhyme? Yes, they do.
I need three words that rhyme. I have two already on my mind. I'm thinking of these two words that rhyme. Pig, dig. Pig, dig, girl.
Do they rhyme?
Pig, dig, wig.
Do they rhyme?
Pig,
Yes.
dig, rig.
Do they rhyme? Yes, they end
Now
in
I'm
the
thinking
same
of
sound.
these two words that rhyme. Bet, set.
Remember, words to rhyme needs to end in the same sound. Et. They rhyme because they end in the same sounds. So now let's go and see the activity. You're gonna choose the words that rhyme and you wanna write them in your notebook. Met, man, do they rhyme? No. Met, mat, do they rhyme? No. Met, bat, no. Men, mat, no. Men, bat, no. Mat, bat, do they rhyme? Yes. So you wanna write them in your notebook. You wanna write numbers 1 to 10 and match the words that rhyme. Don't forget to take a picture and submit your work.